At dawn, the Nile glows gold. Its waters move slowly, eternal, unbroken, carrying the reflection of temples and palm trees. The air is filled with the sound of herons and distant chants from priests welcoming the sun. But for Egypt, this dawn is the last before darkness. In the palace of Alexandria, Cleopatra stands by the window. She is young, but her eyes already carry the weight of a dying empire. Behind her, marble halls echo with silence. Once filled with laughter, music, and philosophers, they now feel hollow. A kingdom that knows it stands at the edge of time. She looks toward the Nile, the same river that gave life to her ancestors, the same current that carried the stones of pyramids, the same mirror where she once saw herself as divine. Now it seems colder, distant, as if it, too, senses the end approaching. Beyond the horizon lies Rome, the new sun of the world. Its legions march across continents, bringing order and ruin at once. Cleopatra knows their leader, their language, their power. She has shared the breath of Caesar, and soon the heart of Antony. Yet even love in this age is a weapon. The wind from the sea enters her chamber, carrying the scent of salt and incense. It brushes her golden jewelry, makes it tremble softly like the echo of everything Egypt was, proud, radiant, eternal, and yet fragile, mortal, fading. For thousands of years, the Nile watched empires rise and vanish, but never has it seen its own goddess weep for her throne. This morning, as light touches the water, the last true pharaoh stands in silence, watching the world she was born to rule begin to disappear. Cleopatra was not born to obey. From the first breath she took in the halls of her father's palace, she understood that a crown meant nothing without control. Power was not a gift, it was a storm that had to be mastered. While kings and generals spoke of war, she studied the art of speech, the rhythm of persuasion, the politics of survival. She spoke 9 languages, read ancient scrolls by torchlight, and learned how men built empires from words before they built them with swords. When Julius Caesar set foot in Egypt, he found not a trembling ruler, but a woman who could look directly into the eyes of Rome. The meeting between them was not a passion alone. It was a negotiation with history itself. That night in the chambers of Alexandria, Cleopatra showed him not submission, but vision. A vision of an empire reborn under her rule. For the Romans, she was seduction made flesh. For the Egyptians, she was divine, the living image of the goddess Isis. But beneath the silk and gold, she carried the heart of a strategist. She knew that Rome's favor was a blade that could protect or destroy, and she learned to dance along its edge without bleeding. In the years that followed, Cleopatra's name spread like sunlight on the marble of distant temples. She bore Caesar a son, a symbol of 2 worlds united and doomed. In that child, she saw the possibility of a new dynasty, a future where Egypt might live through Rome instead of die beneath it. But empires do not share power. And even as the queen stood beside the mightiest man on earth, she could feel the ground shifting beneath her feet. The river that had always obeyed her tides now whispered a warning that no alliance, no love, no crown can stand against the tide of destiny. After Caesar's death, the world trembled again. Rome split in 2, brother against brother, power against memory. And in that storm, Cleopatra saw her chance. She met Mark Antony not as a widow, but as a queen who refused to fade. He was a soldier of fire, a man who worshiped courage and chaos. Where Caesar was mind, Antony was heart. And for a time, their hearts beat as one. The queen invited him to Alexandria, and the city bloomed in gold and music once more. Perfumed gardens, torch-lit feasts, ships sailing across the Nile with crimson sails. Together they built a vision greater than Rome itself, an empire of east and west, ruled by love and faith instead of fear. Antony believed her. He saw in her eyes not ambition, but destiny. He crowned her Queen of Kings and declared their son a prince of the rising world. The temples rang again with hymns to Isis. The people whispered that Egypt had risen from the dead. But power has a scent, and Rome could smell it across the sea. Whispers reached Octavian, Caesar's heir, who saw in their union not love, but rebellion. He called her a witch, a temptress, a curse upon the Republic. And as the Senate roared with hatred, Cleopatra understood what Antony could not, that every empire kills the dream that dares to rival it. Still, she smiled, for even in the shadow of Rome, she had turned her name into legend. The gods may choose who wins, but history remembers who dares. The dream of empire sailed into war, September 31st BC. The sea boiled beneath the burning sun, and the wind carried the sound of horns and chaos. On one side, Rome, led by Octavian, armed with order and ambition. On the other, Egypt, led by love. Cleopatra's fleet glittered like a mirage. Ships covered in gold and purple banners, sails scented with myrrh, oars beating in rhythm like the pulse of a living god. Mark Antony stood at the prow, the reflection of fire in his eyes. He believed that courage could rewrite fate. But the gods were silent. Rome came like thunder. Octavian's navy stretched across the horizon, a wall of iron and discipline, while Antony's forces moved with beauty but without unity. The sea filled with smoke, black, thick, endless. Arrows fell like rain, the waves turned red. From her royal barge, Cleopatra watched the sky darken. The sound of war became a heartbeat that would not stop. For a moment, she saw Antony's ship surrounded, engulfed by Roman fire. And in that single instant, she made her choice, the choice that would seal her name in eternity. She ordered retreat. Her sails caught the wind and carried her away from the slaughter. The fleet, seeing their queen flee, broke and scattered. Antony, blinded by despair, followed her into the open sea, leaving his army to burn behind him. The battle ended not with victory, but with silence. When the sun fell, the waters of Actium reflected only ashes and drifting wood. 2 lovers escaped alive, but their world had died. From that moment, Rome no longer feared Egypt, it pitied it. And as the waves calmed, the empire of the Nile sank into memory, dragged down by love, pride, and the weight of destiny. The sea that once carried gold and laughter now carried silence. Antony and Cleopatra returned to a city that no longer believed in them. Alexandria, the jewel of the Mediterranean, stood beneath a sky of ash. Its marble streets, once filled with scholars and merchants, now echoed with the march of soldiers. The libraries were locked, the harbor was empty, and the people whispered prayers to gods who no longer answered. Antony, broken by defeat, wandered the halls like a ghost in armor. He had fought for love and lost an empire. The hero of Rome had become a shadow of Egypt. His sword rusted, his honor bleeding out with every passing hour. He looked to Cleopatra for hope, but even she, radiant and proud, began to fade beneath the weight of the inevitable. From the palace balcony, she watched Octavian's banners rise on the horizon. The legions of Rome approached like an unbroken tide. Their drums shook the stones of the harbor. In that moment, Cleopatra understood that the world she ruled was already gone. She walked through her palace one last time, through empty corridors and silent gardens, past fountains that no longer sang, past statues of her ancestors whose eyes seemed to turn away. Each step echoed like a farewell. When Antony fell upon his sword, she held him as a light drained from his eyes. No words were spoken. They had said everything in life, and nothing could be said in death. Outside, the city burned quietly, its flames reflected in the waters of the Nile, like dying stars. By the time Octavian entered Alexandria, the Queen of Egypt was no longer a ruler, but a prisoner. Rome had conquered her walls, her army, her people, but not her soul. The empire of sand had fallen, yet the woman who ruled it still stood, beautiful and defiant, as if even the ashes would obey her one last command. The palace was quiet. Outside, the Roman banners waved in the wind, but inside, the walls still carried the scent of myrrh and lotus, the perfume of gods who had turned their faces away. Cleopatra sat alone in her chamber. Gold surrounded her, yet it felt cold, like sunlight on a tomb. The noise of the city was distant now, a heartbeat fading beneath the weight of an empire. In a bronze mirror, she saw her reflection, a queen, a mother, a myth still trapped in mortal skin. The world had taken everything from her throne, her lover, her future, but not her choice. When Octavian demanded she kneel before him in Rome, she smiled and refused. She would not be a trophy paraded through foreign streets. She would die as she had lived, as a goddess in command of her own fate. As the sun began to set, she asked her servants to bring her the asp, a serpent sacred to Isis, the bringer of both death and rebirth. She held it calmly, feeling the slow rhythm of its coils around her wrist. A single bite, a breath, a silence deeper than prayer. When the Romans entered her chamber, they found her lying on a bed of gold, dressed in white linen, crowned with pearls, her lips still curved in a faint, knowing smile. Beside her, the serpent slept, its task complete. That night, the Nile was still. The torches of Alexandria burned without sound, and though her kingdom had fallen, her story did not end. It drifted down the river, across the sea, and into eternity. Cleopatra and the last pharaoh had defeated time itself, for even empires turn to dust, but her name will never fade,